Hey witches. So Beltane just passed, and I have a video that I made about LITHA last year, and I'm going to post it. But I wanted to do another video about just kind of the background of LITHA and some other things that you can do to celebrate. And then I have a part 2 of this that's going to focus on spells, rituals, and different things that you can do for manifestation, and maybe some extra offerings that I didn't mention in the first video. So this is from one of my favorite websites, The Goddess and the Green Man. I will leave this link in the description so that you can check it out. There's everything on here. Just type into the search bar whatever you want to learn about, and they're going to have some good stuff for you on here. So, and I also wanted to mention that I will be doing an unboxing of one of my new subscription boxes, the business that I have started, just so you can see what last month's box looks like. Next month's box is going to focus on all things summer. So if you're interested, you can place your order on Facebook. Anyway, so LITHA. I love LITHA. It's the longest day of the year. It is on June 21st in the Northern Hemisphere. It is the summer solstice. And the difference between an equinox and a solstice is the solstice is a longer amount of daytime than nighttime. So it's the longest day and the shortest night. When we get to the winter solstice in December, it'll be the opposite, the shortest day and the longest night. But when you have an equinox, it's 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. So since this is a solstice, we're going to have a lot more daytime. So some things that are sort of background info. I'm not going to read this word for word, guys, but basically what you need to know about LITHA / midsummer is that it's the longest day, it's the shortest night. The goddess is fully pregnant with child. That means that all of the abundance is getting ready to manifest. The animals are getting ready to give birth. The crops are starting to come up. All that great stuff. And also the sun god is at the height of his virility. So it's a really strong day to work with solar deities. So it's a time of joy and celebration, because all of this stuff coming, like I've said before in a couple of videos, we are spoiled as fuck. Okay? We can get in the car right now, run over to our favorite restaurant or grocery store, and pretty much get whatever we want. If we have the money, get whatever we want and eat it. Back then, not so much, okay? You've got to depend on your crops, your livestock, and without that, there's nothing else. So this is huge. It's a huge celebration. The turning of the wheel after you pass Imbolc, your next several Sabbats they're so celebratory because of the abundance that's coming. And if you relate to ancient times and you follow the old ways, you understand why. Which I just said why, but you get it. Let's see. So also one thing you have to think about, which is sort of the sad part, but not for me because I like dark. But if you're thinking about ancient ways, the dark sort of symbolizes death, because the crops are dying, they're not having any more babies at that time. Not the humans, but, the livestock. So it also is kind of like a little shadow there, hey, I'm the dark. This is the brightest, the longest day of the year. tomorrow, guess what? That is starting to wane and go toward the dark. But that's okay. We have a cycle, the turning of the year, turning of the wheel of the year. It happens. It's life. So, after the longest day, of course, the days are going to start to grow shorter and the nights are going to go longer. And we're going to keep on turning. But at this time, the god as Oak King is rich in abundance. But he too surrenders his reign to his brother twin, the Holly King. And the descent begins. But before we welcome the return of the dark side of the year and acknowledge this great turning point of the wheel, we celebrate. So we're going to talk about the ways to celebrate. So these are some just basic traditions, and I'm going to add some stuff at the end for you to do that's not on here. I know it's not on here because they're spells out of my BOS. So the bonfire, okay? And yesterday I was at Beltane. I went to actually 2 celebrations because I got bored at one because there was like a lull, and I was like, I'll drive 2 hours to the other one and check it out. And that one was actually sponsored by the Church of Wicca. It was pretty cool, and I got some good products that I will review for you guys. But anywho, so the bonfire. Why would you want a bonfire when it's already hot outside? Well, you are celebrating a Sabbath that is tied to the sun more than any other Sabbath because it is the summer solstice. We get that sun for longer than we do any other day of the year. So anything that goes along with sun, especially fire, is what you're going to do, or what you would hopefully you're going to do. If you can't do a bonfire, you can do a candle. I would do red, orange, or yellow. Or if I couldn't do a bonfire, which I always do a bonfire for LITHA unless it's raining. And then if it is, I'll do one in my cauldron on my covered porch out front. But if I couldn't, for some reason, I would do probably a red, a yellow, and an orange candle all together. I would inscribe them each with an image of the sun and just maybe, even a sigil of the sun god for each one, and then maybe rub them in some sun oil and leave those, as an offering to the sun god. And at the same time, you're using that fire to honor and celebrate LITHA. So right here it says, at LITHA, the bonfire really represents a reflection of the sun at the peak of its strength. Okay? And the reason they would choose oak is because of the strength in oak. Oak is so strong. Not just the strength of the wood, which it is, but the magical correspondences about oak, the magical correspondence that go along with the oak tree. Anytime you're doing anything where you want to evoke strength or even invoke strength, and I'll link my tree hugging video below because it can help you too if you're interested in working with trees. But sorry guys, I'm making a little bit of noise. But when you're incorporating any part of the oak, whether it's leaves, root, wood, bark, any seeds, anything like that, you're adding strength into whatever you're doing. So if you're doing incense, or you're adding it to an oil, or you're just, sitting a pile of oak leaves to represent earth in your corner, when you're casting your circle, you are bringing in strength. So it says here that they would choose oak and aromatic herbs that were scattered into the fire. And of course, people danced around the fire, leaped through the fire. When you leap through a sacred fire, it is said that it's extremely good luck. Is extremely good luck or extreme good luck? I don't fucking know. One of those. So it can bring you an abundance of good luck. It's also like a blessing. So if you get a chance to do that, carefully and safely. Don't do it if you've got on your black ritual robe, because you might catch on fire. But this is really not a Sabbath where you would be wearing black. You'd probably want to dress in bright colors, fire colors, bright colors, summer colors, which is hard for me because I love black. But anyway, if you're going to do your makeup and go celebrate one of these Sabbaths, this is way off topic, but I would Google LITHA makeup, midsummer makeup, summer makeup, and so much cool shit will come up where you can do your makeup to sort of match the Sabbath. And when you're doing that, it helps with self-love because you're looking in the mirror, you know, you're excited about what's going on, and you're connecting with yourself. Anytime you get ready and you make improvements to your physical appearance, you're giving yourself self-love because you like the way you look. Nobody hates themselves that much. And if you do, please contact me so I can coach you one-on-one for free to get you where you need to be, because nobody should hate themselves. Anyway, I'm going to move on because I'm rambling way too much. So this also says that coals from the fire were scattered on the fields to ensure a good harvest. So again, connecting back to that harvest. So the oak, the mighty oak. My grandmother has the 2 biggest oak trees in her front yard. And I have watched them grow for 40 years. That's all I'm going to say. I'm old as fuck, y'all. Anyway, I've watched them grow for almost 40 years because she's been there my whole life, and they are hundreds of years old, and they are huge and beautiful. And whenever I'm at her house, she knows that I'm going to give them both a hug. And a couple weeks ago, there was a little snake hanging out by the tree. So I was like so excited. And I told her, I said, if you see that snake again, just run. Do not kill it. She said, I know better. I said, good. She knows that would break my heart. So anywho, like I said earlier, oak trees definitely go with strength, courage, and endurance. And the most significant wood or correspondence to work with as far as trees go right now is the oak. If you don't have any oak leaves and you really want to do working with some oak leaves during this time, since I'm so loving and so sweet, I am going to send you a free bag if you will just Facebook me your address. I'll be happy to send you a little bag of oak leaves if you need some. But you can find them. Just find an oak tree somewhere that's not on someone's property and pull over, ask the tree, carefully snip them, leave an offering, and then use those. And you can just let them dry naturally. If you need to dry them quickly, put them in the oven on low for 5 to 7 minutes, but check on them every 2 minutes to make sure they're not burning. Anyway, I love this part because it says the Celtic name for oak is Dor, which means doorway. We're crossing the threshold, entering the doorway into the second waning part of the year. Like I said, after the longest day, can't be another longest day. It doesn't get any longer. It begins to get shorter. But we have a long time till that happens. So mistletoe. And if you watched my Yule video, which I hope you did because I had some good stuff for you there, but mistletoe is highly revered by the Druid. It's extremely potent when it grows on oak. I've never seen this happen. Now, my grandmother does have 2 holly trees, a mistletoe tree, a cedar tree, a dogwood tree, and 2 oaks. So her yard is just full of magic. And I used to have a pecan tree in the back, but it was too close to the house. I had to have it cut. Really sad. Anyway, so when the mistletoe is growing on the oak, it says that the noblest of trees, which will be the oak, if it's growing between that, then it is growing between the worlds of heaven and earth. And that doesn't mean heaven as in Jesus' heaven. It just means the heavens, okay, the ethers, or the ether. Although it's more commonly associated with Yule, of course, and the winter solstice, it was often gathered ceremonially at midsummer when it's regarded to be at the height of its power. So even though we use it a lot in Yule, it's still, excuse me, very strong. It's a strong tree to work with. So don't forget about that one. Some herbs. All herbs are reaching their peak at this time. This is when, you know, they've been sowed, they're growing, they're ready, you know, some of them, not all of them, but some of them will be ready to harvest. If you're going to harvest them on LITHA, make sure they're ready. And when you do so, excuse me, guys, approach it with reverence and love and connect with the plant, which hopefully you've been connecting with it the entire time because you know, gave birth in a way to this plant by planting it. Hopefully you're, you know, doing those things that you can to connect with your plants. And one of them is to water them with some water with some of your menstrual blood or regular blood in that water, because it's going to tie that herb to you and give it so much magic. And then I would also suggest, and I think I said this in the first LITHA video, but in case you don't watch it, when you are harvesting these herbs, if you have herbs that are connected to the sun, which many of them are, and I'll leave a link below in the description that gives you all of your crystals that relate to the sun, your solar deities, and also your herbs, barks, flowers, resins, and all that stuff that go with the sun. So it's a good time to harvest them. You can also give them as gifts. Flowers. Now, I talked a bunch about flowers in my first video, so all I'm going to say is Beltane includes a lot of flowers, and so do the next 2 Sabbats, because flowers are in abundance during this time, and you can use them any way you want. Flower crowns, flower wreaths, incense, oils, herbal blends, ritual baths, just flowers for beauty, drying flowers to have them for the future, whatever you can think about, leaving them as offerings for deities, for the fae. Definitely want to leave some kind of offering for the sun god on this day. And you could choose some beautiful flowers to do this, to incorporate into your offering. But I would not only leave flowers. I would leave some more stuff, and I'll talk about that at the end. Whoops, sorry about that. There was a close-up of a bee, which we love, because we need bees. So honey. Honey is always an appropriate offering all the time. So if you are ever like, what do I leave for an offering for this deity, or for this fairy, or for this whatever, use some honey if you have some and you don't have anything else. Wine is always good. Moon water or spring water is always good. Candles are always good. Just try to match the candle color to whatever you're, or whoever you're leaving it for. If not, white always works. But honey is a wonderful offering. So I'm going to read what this says about honey. Our lovely bees are now making honey. Midsummer full moon is known as the honeymoon, for the mead made from the honey now available. This is often part of hand fastings performed at the summer solstice. So you have a lot of hand fastings taking place during the summer. A lot of times it is done at Beltane, but can also be done on this day on LITHA. And I think it's funny because there's always like a heightened level of people, even just Christian people. June is like the month where people get married, and it's so interesting to me because it falls right between two of our Sabbaths that us as witches really tie to fertility and marriage. So I think that's kind of coincidental and a little funny. But anyway, it says mead is regarded as the divine solar drink with magical and life-restoring properties. Drink to celebrate and toast the life-giving abundance of the sun. So it's a wonderful offering to leave. A little bit more about honey, real quick, because you know how my mind works. Shit's going to pop into it, and I'm going to say it. When you're working with honey, you can use honey to dress a candle and then roll it in some herbs to make the herbs stick. But not only do the herbs stick, the intention of whatever you laid down or put into that candle, that intention is also going to be bound to you through the thickness of the honey, especially when you're dealing with money magic or even self-love magic, because of the sweetness of the honey and the abundance related to the honey. So those are good things to use it for. You can also do a honey jar, which will allow whatever else you put into that jar to stick with you. You can add honey to oils, not too much because it'll be sticky. But like my self-love oil has honey in it just to bring in that sweet warmth. You can add some honey to your bath water, not a lot. You don't want to be sticky. But you can do a lot with honey. You can infuse honey with herbs and eat that honey. Or use it to sweeten teas, magical teas. And I'll link my magical tea video just in case anyone else is interested in hearing more about how to use honey in magical drinks. So the colors of midsummer. And I touched on this already. But it says, well, take your pick. Like I said, pretty much every color except for black is really appropriate for LITHA. Because think about the summer. What color don't you see? Right? You're seeing pretty much every color. So dress colorful. And it says here the 4 colors of the 4 elements. Of course, red, blue, green, and yellow. And if you want to include spirit, that would be purple. But you can dress in those colors. You can also dress in blue for the sky, green for the grass, yellow for the sun, or red, orange, and purple to honor the flowers. You could also do a red, yellow, and orange outfit to sort of look like the sun. It's up to you. It's also appropriate at a festival if you want to wear a white dress. That's always acceptable. And you can wear black too. I'm not telling you can't wear black. I'll never say that. I'm just saying it's not a color typically associated with LITHA. So for your altar, you're going to add things to your altar. And anytime you switch your altar, which you should do this at every dark moon, you need to clean your altar off, get rid of incense ashes, any other junk. Make sure your altar cloth is clean. Make sure you have saged or Palo Santo'd or done some sort of clearing work to clear that stagnant energy, and then sort of restart the altar. Just keeping it nice and tidy, getting rid of stagnant energy, and then sort of redo it a little bit. And for this Sabbath, you can add oak leaves. You can leave any herbs tied to solar, anything, any flowers, grasses, anything that's available. Candles in those solar colors, gold would be wonderful to use. And it's a shrine it's a shrine to honor the sun. So if you can, get yourself some sunflowers. We just planted some, and they probably won't be big enough. I don't know, they might be. I don't know, it depends how fast they grow, but sunflowers are great to use because they look like the sun. Also, a flower that looks like the sun to me is the dandelion. So you can also use those because they are full of magic, and I'll link my dandelion video below. So things you can do, you can make buttermilk bread, a buttermilk bread charm. And it says it helps to bring abundance into your kitchen. The sunflower seeds represent the light half of the year, and the poppy seeds represent the dark half. So you're going to use those ingredients. I will post this so you don't have to hear me read the recipe. But that sounds good. I think I'll do that. And it says you can also make nettle soup with it, but you don't have to. So you can also do elderflower champagne. So I'm just going to read this. A traditional favorite, elderflowers peak at midsummer. Pick them in the fullness of a sunny day, ideally on LITHA, right? The elder is sacred to the mother goddess and is often called the witch's tree, the elder mother, or the queen of trees. Is protected with wonderful healing properties. It aids in transformation, change, and renewal. And we are at a major turning point in the wheel of the year, so the gift of elderflowers is welcome. Because think about that. Transformation, change, renewal. That's what's happening right now. The earth is awake. The earth is changing. We're going from dark, dead nothing to light, blooming everything. Okay, so these are your ingredients for your wine that you want to make. It sounds kind of gross. Or champagne. It sounds gross. Vinegar and I don't know, it might be good. So if you want to try that, go for it. You could also take some regular champagne and take some elderflowers and do maybe a really, really strong tea with the elderflowers, and then strain it and mix, maybe 3/4 champagne to 1/4 of this mixture. Or if you wanted to make it a really thick concentrate, just add a few drops to a regular champagne. But when you are creating any recipe or any oil or any incense from start to finish on your own, you're imbuing that with so much magic. So you might want to give it a try if you're planning to make it. Anywho, honey cake. Yum. So bees, we know, are special. They're important. They give us honey, but they also give us life. This world without bees would be a nightmare. So please don't kill bees, and spread the message to people, whether they're witchy or not, that, it's just not a good idea to kill bees. Okay? Don't. Just run if you're scared. So what you can do is you can make this honey cake. Honey itself is full of life-giving properties, And honey cake is a perfect way to celebrate midsummer or LITHA, or you can give it as a gift. You can make some and eat some of it and then just give away slices or do several cakes, whatever you want to do. But you should try to get locally produced honey. One reason why, to my fellow allergy sufferers out there, local honey will help you become immune to the pollen in the air. But also, it's good to have local honey because it's less stomped on. It's less produced. It's more natural. Plus, it has the energy of the area that surrounds you. So, it's good to use local. But when you're doing that, think about where the honey comes from. Think about where all the ingredients come from. And also thank the bees for the honey. So there's the ingredients. That looks yummy. And with these ingredients, guys, if you feel the need to add in a pinch of this or a pinch of that that's enchanted, go for it, okay? So I think that's it. I think that's all that I see. Let's see what it is. No, this is just extra stuff. So these are also links that you can go to. Let's check this out. See, this will have all of your Sabbats linked to it. And let's click on LITHA and see what happens. And it takes us to the exact same page. So some spells that you can do for LITHA. And I think I'm going to settle on this fire for a minute. So when you are thinking about spells to do on different Sabbats or Esbats, you want to think about what does that celebration, what does that holiday focus on? What's it celebrating? Like you would do completely different work on Samhain than you would on LITHA. It's just different. So what can you do spell-wise? Well, think about Sundays. And I'll link my video on planetary hours and days below too, just in case you don't know what I'm talking about. On Sundays, you're focusing on spells that deal with success, whether it be job success, life success, whatever success. It's really good to work with Crown of Success oil on that day too. And I suggest to charge that oil under the sun. And charging that oil under the sun on LITHA would be ideal. So if you have any oils that are solar oils, charge those. And if you're not sure if it is, Google it. It'll tell you. So charge that, and any candles that you have that you know you're going to be using for spells like this in the future, charge those too. Just don't let them melt because it's hotter in some areas than other areas. So anyway, spells that focus on success, regardless of what kind of success. Strength, no matter what kind of strength. Overcoming obstacles. And a good stone to incorporate into strength and overcoming obstacles is Tiger's Eye. Tiger's Eye, it's like whenever I think about Tiger's Eye, I think about the movie Rocky and the song The Eye of the Tiger. Because it really brings in that sort of spirit of the tiger, that ferociousness and that strength, the lack of fear. Tiger's Eye is wonderful to work with. Just make sure that you are treating your crystals the way you're supposed to treat them. So anyway, and I mean prepping them, programming them and stuff. So what you can do also is any spells that focus on abundance. Why would you do spells that focus on abundance during this time? If you really don't know the answer to that question, you don't understand this at all. You don't understand what the Sabbath is representing. Guys, it's representing abundance. Okay? Things are coming to fruition now. The fields are, there's green coming up. There are babies being born, like livestock babies and human babies. But so much abundance. So if you want to do any abundance work, whether it's money magic, you want to do an abundance of love, you want to do abundance of anything, go for it on LITHA. And my suggestion, if you're going to do any of these spells, would be to add in a gold candle, even if it's just a chime candle. But throw in a gold candle with a sigil for the sun god on it. And then, even just draw a little sunshine on there. So, you can choose a sun god. If you would rather work with someone else, it's up to you. But they need to be a solar deity, okay? So, what else can you do? I'm getting tired of looking at that fire. Let's look at the oak tree. So anyway, what else can you do? So we talked about strength, abundance, courage, success. Also on Sundays, it's a good time to focus on just like positivity and just bringing in positive vibes. And one of the reasons why is because it's so connected to the sun, and the sun can do wonders for you. Lots of witches that are, really understand the elements and what nature has to offer us. They understand that the sun is fucking medicine, okay? The rain is medicine. These things are medicinal to your spirit, to your soul, for your aura. These things help you. They can help to prevent any kind of negative attacks, any kind of negative, just mental junk, anything that is trying to penetrate your magical barrier can't get through if you have a strong enough aura. And things that help your aura are things with negative ions, unless you want to do specific work on your aura. But just some ways to go out in nature and get that magical medicine to help that aura. Sunlight. Spending a little while outside on LITHA is going to give you like that on steroids. So do that. Pump that aura up. Close those holes in your auric field. Get rid of that stuff. And then also walking in the rain, because that releases negative ions, and negative ions are perfect for your aura. Anywho, so you can do that. You could also do a very, very simple spell where you want anything, just whatever you're focusing on, and hold on to a stone that is a stone directly tied to the Sabbath, but also something that's, sort of correlated to your working. So if you were doing a money working, abundance and money, you might hold on to a piece of pyrite. But I want you to hold on to that, and I want you to just visualize during a meditation, light you an incense. I would say patchouli, because it's heavily tied to the sun and it smells great, and it really goes with a lot of abundance work. So do that. and then just meditate for half an hour on what you want. And if you can do it outside, sitting on the ground, where part of your skin, like with shorts on, where part of your skin is actually touching the ground, and you're doing this outside under the sunlight on LITHA, you can't get much more magical than that. So when you are working on anything magical, say you want to make an oil. Well, if you want to make a really strong LITHA oil, which would be an oil that you could add into any ritual, spell, just use it to dress candles, to leave offerings during LITHA, whatever you want to use it for. And oils last a long time. So you're going to take, here's what I would take. You can tweak this. I would use some chips of a couple of stones. I would use tiger's eye, citrine, and then probably a little carnelian, just little chips, and put those 3 in there. And then put my olive oil. And I would put also some other correspondences that are under the sign of fire, which would be the sun or fire, but some of these also have Mars qualities. And like I said, every video, when you are creating something, make sure you are charging the whatever it is that you're going to use with the intent that you're going to use it for. So I would use, along with the crystals, I would put some basil, I would put some calendula, I would put dandelions, I would put some cinnamon, I would add probably some patchouli as well, and maybe a couple of other things like some cedar. And since this would be for LITHA, I would definitely add some oak leaves, dried. Now, you can add more. You can substitute. I'll put a link that gives you the main correspondences that are under the element of fire or the sun, which they're, if they're under fire, then they fit what I need them for right now. So I would use that little mixture, maybe even some copal, just depending on if I want to do that. But I would use golden copal because that just looks more fire to me. And things like that matter in witchcraft because it's all about your state of mind, your headspace going into it. So you could do that for an oil and use it for all those things that I mentioned already. Now, what spells can you do? We talked about success and all those different types of spells. So what would be a good ingredient to add into those spells for LITHA if you're doing those things on LITHA, which LITHA is a good time to do those spells because they are heavily tied to the sun because you are seeking success, strength, or courage. And those are your main 3. You can also do spells that pertain to abundance and fertility. Those would also work. So I'm going to give you an example of how to do an abundance spell on LITHA. Because as witches, abundance spells and protection spells are probably the main two that most of us do. Just because, why not, right? We have to have the protection, but there's other things that we would like to have in our lives. Does not mean we're greedy, just means we can. So when you have the ability, why the hell not? Okay, let's stop looking at this oak tree now. Let's look at, and I would demo this spell, but it take a long time to get myself situated. And you could add elderflower to your oil too, if you wanted. It does have healing properties, and it aids with transformation, change, and renewal. So that might also be one that you might want to put in your LITHA oil that you make. And honey, you can add that. So, how did I skip over this, guys? I didn't go through all that. How did I skip that? Anyway, we'll come back to that in a second. So anyway, what can you do to manifest abundance? Well, the first thing you could do is make a honey jar. And what you would put in the honey jar, you would begin, it doesn't matter what order you layer these in, okay? When I do a honey jar, I like to put the honey in first because I like the jars to be pretty, even though I ultimately am going to shake it. I want it to look pretty before I shake it, okay? If that makes any sense. So in my LITHA Abundance honey jar, what I would put: honey, basil. Basil is also tied to fire. I put a layer of basil, and then I would put a layer of citrine chips. And if you haven't been working with crystal chips, which are just tiny tumbled stones, you've seen me open them in hauls before, you can get them on AliExpress for so cheap, and also on eBay. Just type in tumbled stones, 50 grams or 100 grams, and it'll pop up. And I'll share one of the links. It's not going to be an affiliate link. I haven't really been doing those lately. I need to redo my page for my links. But what you would do is just go to that link and then choose the ones that you want. And the particular link that I'm going to give you is buy 3 get 1 free. It's the last one that I used, and I thought it was cool because I got a free bag. So I think I ended up getting 4 bags of tiny tumbled stones, just the chips, and it was $13 or $15. So that's really good because there were 4 50-gram bags. So anyway, I'll leave that link for you in the description so you can start using those. And I'll probably do a whole video on how to incorporate those into Magick, but we're talking about a honey jar. So you're going to take the honey, the basil, the 5-finger grass, and then I would put a layer of cinnamon. Cinnamon is used to speed things up. It is also heavily tied to fire. I'd put those things in there. And then one thing I like to do in my money jars, which this is a honey jar, but it's still, wanting abundance, specifically money for this one. If you were doing an abundance in love, you might do a layer of rose petals. But if I'm talking about abundance in money, then I would put a layer of shredded dollar bills. Probably $1 is enough. If you don't like shredding up money because you feel that it's illegal, or the action of you destroying money is going to cause some sort of butterfly effect and you're just scared, then that's fine. Take a handful of clean and cleansed and charged coins and make a layer of coins. So you have two options there. Then what I would do is I would take 3 oak leaves and put those in there. And then if I still had space, what I would add in mine, I would top it off with my money mixture. Now, not everything in my money mixture or my money herbal blend is tied to the sun. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Everything doesn't have to be fiery. We just want to have some of those fiery components if we're doing this on LITHA. And you don't have to. You can do it whenever. But those are the main things that I would include. And top it off with that money mixture, the herbal mixture, and we're good. Some people like to put a layer of honey at the bottom and at the top. I don't, because it's messy. But when you do that, it does sort of create a layering that's going to easily saturate most of the ingredients, or at least coat most of the ingredients in the honey. It's just not something that I do, but it is a good practice to do. I just don't like it because it's messy. But you could do that, making sort of a honey sandwich, and there's your jar. What you do with that jar, if you have a money altar or a money shrine, anything, anywhere that you are keeping those things that you create that are seeking abundance, you can put your jar there. You can put it on your regular altar. If you're a devotee and you have an altar specifically made for a deity, even if you're not a devotee and you have their altar, like I would put my abundance jar, any new ones that I were to make, but the ones I already have are on Lakshmi's altar. Why are they not on Hekate's altar? Because I don't work with money with Hekate. I don't. I never have. I don't think I ever will. I work with her on more important things. Because there are many more important things in this life than money. But if I'm working with Lakshmi, we are working on me emulating the traits and actions of Lakshmi while attaining wealth. So that would go on Lakshmi's altar. And as I put it on the altar, I would speak to her, put it down, probably shake it 9 times. 9 is a sacred number in witchcraft. It's one of Hecate's sacred numbers, and it's also the number of manifestation. It's also a number to banish. So you got to be careful, make sure that your intent is clear and you're not banishing your money away. And if you're scared to do it that time, just shake it 7 for luck, or 13, which is our favorite number in witchcraft. It's up to you. But then after I set the jar down on the altar, I would light a patchouli incense, just because patchouli is my favorite. Most deities like patchouli because it smells good. You could also use dragon's blood because it is heavily tied to patchouli, heavily tied to the sun and fire. So you might wish to, probably better idea, since we're talking about LITHA, to do the dragon's blood incense. Dragon's blood is also something else that you could put in your money jar, but when you do that and you're charging and programming your, well, not programming so much as just charging your dragon's blood. Dragon's blood is usually loved for banishing, sometimes protection, but mainly banishing and love. So you might want to give it the intent when you're charging it, imbue it with the intent of protecting the money you have while protecting any other means that you have of bringing in money. If you wanted to add the dragon's blood, because it's also one of those fiery / sunny ingredients that we have. Anyway, you could do that. You could do a petition on LITHA for whatever you want, and then take any of those ingredients I mentioned for the jar, or even a couple, put those inside. I always anoint my petitions with whatever oil corresponds with them. I always do this because I have an oil for every petition. So I would put some of my LITHA oil that I made on there, and I would also put my money oil. I might even mix them together in my hand, stir it together with my finger, and then I usually put 3 thumbprints in the oil on the petition. It's usually what I do. I have been known to mix a little of the oil with a little of my blood, and then get my, I like my glass pen a lot more than my quill pen right now. I would take my glass ink dipper pen, dip it in the oil, and sign my name 9 times in the oil. That is up to you. It is a lot of work, but it's worth it, trust me. So, what do you do with the petition? Well, you can lay it on the altar, any of the ones I talked about the honey jar. And with the honey jar, if you want, you can bury it in your yard. If you have an oak tree or a cedar tree, bury it there. But especially if you have an oak tree, bury it at the base of that tree, while thanking that tree and the universe for the abundance that's coming your way. And the same thing with the petition if you're going to bury it. Now, if you don't have an oak tree, just pick a pretty spot in your yard and bury it. Now, if you want to burn the petition. You might want to say something out loud as it burns. And one of the reasons burning the petition would be a good idea on LITHA is because you're bringing in the actual element of fire, which is perfect. So do that. And then I would dump my ashes out at the base of an oak tree. Or if I couldn't find an oak tree, a cedar tree would be good. Or if you don't have either, just blow them out in your yard or dump them out. And some other spells. I'm not going to give specific examples, but some other things you could do on LITHA besides abundance and anything else that you wanted to bring in. A couple other things that you could do. Since love is tired. Love is tiring. But since love is tied to fiery passion and fertility and growth and all that stuff, You can do love workings, but only do them to attract love in general or focus on self-love. Don't you dare put a love spell on a person. If you do that, you're a shitty witch. And if you're somebody who goes around putting love spells on people, fuck you. So sorry, but you are ruining someone's life. It'd be better for you to just curse them instead of putting a love spell on them, so don't do that. But you can bring in love. Just make an oil. Take those same correspondences I talked about earlier in the oil, maybe add a little bit of rose quartz and some jasmine and some rose, and then charge it in the sunlight, and then take your oil and anoint a candle or your third eye, or put some over your heart, and then look in the mirror, say those affirmations for love, like I'm open to love, I am worthy of being loved. I'll make a love affirmations video too and link it to this. But say those affirmations about love while you're wearing your oil. You could put some of those same correspondences in a tub with you on LITHA and take a LITHA love bath. You could also do this with anything else I've said. Ritual baths are wonderful, especially on days that we have celebrations. Any of them. Take a ritual bath. And then we have some other things that you can do for self-love. So, one thing that you could do is, and you could do this for abundance too, but take an amulet that you have consecrated and gone through all the steps to consecrate that not talisman, but that amulet, and you programmed it to do something, whatever it is. Say you've got a green aventurine one, or a citrine one, or a rose gold one, not rose gold, rose quartz. It could be rose gold with rose quartz, that'd be pretty. But anyway, at sunrise on LITHA, take that amulet and lay it on an altar cloth, put it outside at sunrise to welcome the sunrise on that day, and let it charge out there for 4 or 5 hours in that LITHA sun on the summer solstice, and get that energy in that amulet, and then wear it. And then it's going to imbue that with those magical, just the magic of the day and of the sun and of the sun god, and put it on. And then if you ever want to recharge it in the sun, go ahead. And if you wanted to charge it in the moon, under the full moon in a few months, do that. Whatever you feel called to do, whatever resonates with you as a witch, do it. If you feel the need to do something, do it, because it's the universe telling you to do it. So you could do that with amulets. You could also take your fiery herbs. You could charge them under the sun of the summer solstice. Your crystals, I think I said that at the beginning, you would charge those. Any tools that you have that are tied to fire, like my athame. Some people say it's tied to intellect. I associate mine with intellect and also fire. So that would be air and fire. So I always leave my athame out. I put it out at sunrise on LITHA, leave it out there for 3 hours, and then let it absorb that energy, and then I bring it back in. And of course I do charge it under the moonlight too. I do bury it sometimes, but it's a very, very magical day, and you need to take advantage of that. So any tools that you have, such as your athame that can be tied to fire, charge those. Now, this moon thing that I saw, where did it go? Can't believe I skipped over that. I think I got excited about the bread. I don't know. A moon bowl charm. So, a full moon charm to enhance your natural radiance to celebrate the beauty of midsummer. So, you will need a glass or china bowl, a glass or china jug, and a small white candle. Small one, chime or tea. Draw your water into the jug. So, it says that rainwater is best. I always agree with that. Rainwater is natural, but it's not necessary. It's not required. You can use fresh water from the tap. Another substitute is water from a jug, like distilled water or spring water. You can use those too. Even water from a moving source, like a river, you could use that. So take your water, your bowl, and your small white candle outside. Place them on the ground. Light the candle in a holder and place it at the top of the bowl. At the midnight or noon point of a clock face, pour the water into the center of the bowl and say, "Renewing water shining bright, weave your charm in my bowl of light." Place your moon bowl in the moonlight so the light of the moon, the full moon, is reflected in the water, and leave the candle to burn down. When this is complete, take your bowl and dip your hands into the water, and as you gently splash the moon water on your face, say, "By full moon charm, by full moonlight, may inner beauty shine through tonight. Brightest blessings of the goddess shine through me." When you finish, return the water to the earth. And since this is going on with LITHA, this says favorite holly tree. You could do that. If you don't have that, the oak tree is a wonderful substitute. So, and then it says that that's donated by one of their people that work for them. One thing that I was confused about when I was reading this, because I don't go through these prior to doing the videos, which I maybe should, but I like to go through them with you. Light the candle in a suitable holder and place it at the top of the bowl. I don't really understand how you're going to put the candle in the bowl and then pour the water in the bowl. So what I'm thinking they mean is like not on top of it, inside of it, but like on the ground above where the bowl is. That's the only thing that would make sense to me. One thing you could also do to amp this up would be to do a candle in the north, south, east, and west corners around the bowl, or even to just add more goddess energy by putting 3 candles around the bowl in the shape of a triangle. Whatever you wanted to do would be fine. So anyway, these are just some cool things that you could do, and then I added in my own 2 cents. But I'll link this below. Just remember, when you're celebrating LITHA, what you're celebrating. Okay, you're celebrating the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. The goddess being fully pregnant, and the sun god at the height of his virility. Alright? And when you're thinking about the sun god, don't forget, the sun brings us life. So when you're working with the sun god, you want to do so in reverence. You want to approach any sun god with respect. And if you're referring to our God, okay? Not just a solar deity, but when you're speaking of the god and the goddess, you want to approach that with the deepest respect possible, okay? Not just, oh, hi sun, you're beautiful, da da da. You want to respect that, because without that, we don't have anything. Literally nothing, okay? The air you breathe, that's because the sun caused the plants to grow to give you oxygen, okay? I mean, everything we have is because of the sun, so don't forget that. And I think that that's all that I'm going to do in this part 2. I think for part 3, I'm going to do no, this is part 1. Part 2 is me talking about flowers and incense. But I think I might do a part 3 where I do a spell demo about something that I haven't talked about yet, because I think I want to save that to do it live. Well, not live, but on camera. But this is part 1 on LITHA, guys, and blessed be.